Where the heck did Collins just go? Let me invite him again.
Just click the link, right?
Yeah, click the top link.
Okay, now I'm hearing something.
Yeah. The Hangout link.
It's frozen though.
There you go. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. I'm hanging up on you. Let me go live. Let me show the beautiful mug. What's happening? Okay, okay. We are in the building. We are in the building. Before we get started, everybody just mute yourselves for a second. So it can stop. Let me mute Collins until you get back. Mute him. Is he muted? Mute Collins. Control board. I guess I did mute him. All right. So basically, everybody, welcome to the Online Cookout. We about to get it in. When you come in, when you guys unmute yourselves, please just introduce, give a real quick introduction to the people on the panel. Tonight's discussion is when does college, degrees stop being an asset? When do they start being a detriment? Is there a such thing as too many degrees? Things of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and Sophia, unmute. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. And what would you like us to say in our introduction?
Whatever you want to say. Who are you?
I am Sophia. That is all. C.P. Johnson's great granddaughter. No, yeah, I'm Sophia. I work in education, but I'm also a creative mind, and I am an activist thinker. If you know me, you get that, because I talk a lot, but that's the most of what I do, and that's it.
All right, all right. Collins Peters, go ahead and did I mute you? I think I did. Oh, go ahead and unmute yourself, brother.
We still can't hear you, Collins.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, we can hear that. Wait, you went back out.
What happened just now? You went back out, brother. Let me try it.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Now?
You're good.
Awesome. And you can see me as well?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Perfect. So, hey, everybody. I am Collins Peters. I am a relationship counselor. People call me the relationship guru. I am a master of human relationships. And yeah, I mean, how does one describe themselves? I'm just here to contribute to humanity in the way that I can with whatever knowledge and abilities and wisdom that I have gained over the years, so I can share with others. And I have a purpose. My core purpose in life is to transform human relationships from the basis of fear-based relationships over into love-based relationships. So that's my purpose. And yeah, I'm just here to contribute to the conversation, contribute to the world. Badao.
Yeah, brother. Appreciate it. All right, the infamous Kevon Pierre. Go ahead, chime in, brother. Chime in.
All right, can you hear me? Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Kevon Pierre. Some of my students call me Dr. Pierre. Let's see. Introduction to myself. I like to say that, I love learning, love family, love friends. I like teaching individuals. I've been a college professor now for just about 8 years. Um, and it's the funny thing is, I went from being the only person in my family to graduate high school to actually now having a doctoral degree. So I saw on Facebook where you guys were going to have this hangout, and I said to myself, it would be interesting to have someone that has both the perspective of, well, you don't need to have a degree to make it, which is what everyone in my family did, versus, well, let's try a different route and get a bunch of degrees and see if we can make it then. So I guess that's the reason why I'm here to show, like, two different perspectives of, you know, traditionally what some individuals have done versus what the status quo tells us that we have to do now. So again, that's me. We'll talk a little bit more about me as I get my chance to talk again. But other than that, just would like to say good night to everyone, and hopefully this will be a very interesting and fruitful conversation.
All right.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Let me see if I'm doing this right, because I think I'm checking the boxes and everything. I'm doing everything wrong. Did I mute him? Okay.
No, I muted myself.
Oh, you muted yourself. My
Yeah.
fault. My fault. All right, can y'all see me, or am I just tripping?
We can see you.
Oh, because mine's just stuck on like K. Okay. All right. So yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and start it off. I personally think, and I'm just going to give just real quick because I'd rather have the rest of the panel go ahead and chime in. I personally think there is a time, depending on what career you're aiming for, and depending on if you're passionate about what field you're going into, some school or some type of certificate is needed to get you where you're trying to go to. But also, we live in an age where I think we are saturating the market with bachelor degrees and master's degrees, where now those degrees really don't mean as much as they used to in the past. And a lot of people are just going back to school just to have something to do. Especially if they're unemployed at the moment. I've had friends that being unemployed at the moment and just decided to go back to school to go ahead and get that financial aid and live off that for a little while. I've had friends go back to school just for the sake of trying to make more money or trying to go into a different field, and just to find out that they're having $80,000, $90,000 plus dollars in school loans that they have to pay back. So sometimes I just think that if you are pursuing wealth instead of pursuing money, you'll go a lot further. Because when you pursue money, you end up being in fields that you may not want to be in, and that career choice that you made, you really didn't give a lot of thought into, or you really didn't research the level of income that you'll make with the higher level of education. So that's just my quick little spill on it. Who wants to volunteer to go ahead and go first?
Wait, so please refresh me. What is the question, of the topic that we are addressing?
When do college degrees or obtaining a higher education, when does it stop being an asset?
Okay.
And when can it be a detriment? Go ahead, Pierre, what are you saying?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. I would say I spend a good deal of my time on YouTube, but it's not that I spend it on YouTube watching, cooking shows, but a lot of times I spend time on YouTube watching a gentleman named Dave Ramsey. And I would encourage every single young individual and the older ones to, when you get a chance, go to YouTube and type in Dave Ramsey and then type in college degrees. And this gentleman went from being broke on numerous occasions to being a multimillionaire. And he says he says that if you live in a state, you should not go out of state for college. And I would agree with him greatly, for the exception of, for instance, certain degrees like a law degree. If you get a law degree from a no-name university versus one from an Ivy League school, you tend to make those connections, that could put you in a better firm, right? So, but what I'm trying to say is Dave Ramsey's argument is you have these college kids go to school to get a teaching degree, right? And they know you can actually look up on the Miami-Dade public education website and see where they tell you a teacher coming out of school may make, if it's not a critical shortage area, $30,000, $39,000, but yet still this individual is going into debt, $60,000, $70,000 for that same bachelor's degree. Well, guess what? When you get out of school making $40,000, let's suppose Uncle Sam takes 25% of that, your take home is $30,000, right? And then you start minusing food, clothing, housing, a car. When you start looking at those things, you realize that it takes you an eternity to pay back those student loan debt. And then, so the argument that some students have made to me is, well, I could just get in that special program the government has, and I work for a nonprofit organization, and they'll pay back my debt after 10 years. Well, guess what? The education department just came out and said, well, I know we made that arrangement 9.5 years ago, but it doesn't look like the Treasury has enough money to honor it. So you guys are stuck with those student loans. And chances are, based upon the degree that they have and the student loans that they have, they may most likely never be able to pay it back. So there should be a balance with the amount of student loans you take versus how much money you make when you come out of school. If that balance, if you can't pay it off in 5 years, I don't think the degree is worth getting. If it takes you more than 5 years paying off your student loans, getting out of school, you just need to start rethinking what specialty you're getting into. Even though you're passionate about it, you can be passionate and broke at the same time. That's yeah.
Well, that was what I was going to say, but you contested it. I was going to say, if you're passionate about something and you want as much information as you can have, or I should say, organized and focused information, because we can research things and we can educate ourselves, but it's a different experience when somebody has already organized the curriculum for you and prepared you with prepared the information for you. So I feel like if you're passionate about something, by all means, study it. So let me ask you guys something, for the people on the panel who are parents, because I think that it gets tricky when you're thinking about yourself and then when you're thinking about your children. So your kids are getting to their senior year, and you know how it is. You know how 12th grade is. Even if you know what you want to do, or something that you like, your favorite hobby, there's still like some immaturity there. So a lot of parents feel more comfortable saying, okay, go to college, okay, and major in something or don't major in anything and figure some things out. But at least I know that you'll leave there with something that you can show someone so that you can earn a living. Or, so, I mean, what do you guys think about people having to think about it from different perspectives? From my perspective, I might look at it a little different for me. But to me, I mean, college sometimes saves you when you're in those in-between years and you're like figuring it out. But so what do you guys think about that?
Kavon, you want to chime in?
I don't have children. So I don't have children, but I do have a younger sister who's kind of like my child. She's 12 years younger than me, right? And so I've had that fatherly role placed on me by my father. It's like, hey, if I'm not there, you got to be there. So she's your responsibility. right? So if anything happens to her, that's on you, you know. So I actually, and it is very interesting because I came from the perspective of what I experienced myself going to college, right? And not really understanding fully what I wanted to do with my life, but kind of having an idea, like you said, like, oh, well, maybe I'll just go and, you know, I was an athlete, so I'll continue, you know, competing if I go to school, and I know I like architecture. Maybe I'll just go into
That's
that, but
kind
really my
of
passion is, you know, so for me, I really wasn't sure about what I wanted to do. But the problem is that they're definitely sure that they're going to charge you. You know, they're definitely
That's
you're
true.
sure to incur that debt, right? So for me, it probably would have been more beneficial for me to actually pause for that, you know, take an intensive, you know, 4 months, a year maybe, you know, an intensive reflection process to really just try out some things and see what I really want to do. That would have been much more beneficial than just going to college and racking up debt and racking up, you know, negative experiences. Like also having my father, you know, rack up, spend extra money on something that ultimately was definitely a waste of money, right? So
Would you have been would you have been able to think like that at 18 and 19? Like, let me take a year off and really assess who I want to
yes,
be. You would have? Okay.
yes. I actually, and that's exactly what at 19. All right, at 19, I was a sophomore in college, and I was like, this isn't working. Everything that I'm doing, I'm not enjoying this. I'm not enjoying this process. I don't really know what I want to do. I don't know how to really find out what I want to do, but I got to do that. And so I was like, I'm done. I just stopped going to class. Not in a way. I mean, I started taking magic. I started taking up magic. I started taking up pool. You know, join the tournaments and things. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm just gonna see if I can find something that I really like to do. Maybe I want to do this. And so I got a magic kit, seeing if I wanted to become a magician. I started playing pool every day, see if I wanted to become a pool player. You know, and I really was looking and searching. What it ended up being is I knew I wanted to do something in the field of music, but I didn't know how to do that. Right. And so within that specific field, when I was like, okay, well, I want to do music. Do I need to go to school for that? You know, maybe I do. Maybe it'll benefit me. Maybe not. All I know is I don't want to do architecture because I don't like the reality of the field. So I should have, like what John Mario was saying, it would have benefited me doing the research around the actual field a lot more. I knew how to draw plans. I knew how to read plans because my father was a carpenter, and he also knew how to draw plans himself. He taught me how to read plans from since I was young. So I thought I really, really wanted to do that, right? But it's when I actually started doing the process of the education and realizing that what I wanted to do, I wasn't being educated around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was learning how to take pictures. I was learning how to draw, you know, but I already knew how to make plans. I already knew how to design a house, you know, and so I wasn't learning the things that I wanted to learn. I was learning a lot of stuff that I didn't want to learn. So for me, it was a waste of time, right? Now I did get clear in retrospect. It's beneficial that I was able to do that because now I can, as a person that went to college, experienced college, I can actually tell people you don't all have to go to college, and not from the perspective where somebody'd be like, oh, well, you didn't go to college. That's the only reason why you're saying that. No, I'm just saying I went, and if you're going to go, I think that if you don't know 100% what you want to do, take some time to reflect. I would recommend that. Take give yourself a time limit. Give yourself a time limit. Give yourself a year to reflect or do some research within the field that you're thinking about joining. And before you actually go and sign up, incur that start paying them bills and start paying that debt. And then it would be beneficial if that field that you want to do requires a degree, like Kayvon said, which was a law. If you want to become a doctor, right? There are certain fields for which a degree is required. Teacher in a school, like Kayvon, he's a professor in college. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you're not becoming a professor in college without some kind of degree, right? And so I would do the research and find out whether your field and your passion requires an actual degree. If you want to be a musician, it's not necessary. If you want to be an artist, it's not necessary. If you want to be a painter, it's not necessary. If you love working on cars, if that's your joy, it's not necessary. A lot of these things you can find apprenticeships, you know, and that will teach you the field, and you also will go directly into what you want to do and gain experience for someone who has already been professional and successful within that field. You know, if what you want to do is multi-level marketing, you don't really have to go to a marketing school. You can learn from being a part of a multi-level marketing group, you know. And so I think we should always allow creativity to be a part of our scholastics. Go ahead.
Okay. If you don't mind me chiming in really quickly. So,
Yes, sir.
so my background, so I am a college professor and I have been for about 8 years now. But that's not my primary job. That actually paid for me to get the doctoral degree, the Doctor of Pharmacy degree, so that I can become a licensed pharmacist. Matter of fact, I'm licensed in 4 different states. So I can, if the hurricane is hitting Florida, I can get up and go to Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama and work. And it actually happened actually about 3 weeks ago. The hurricane hit, a bunch of pharmacists from Florida ran away, and I was able to work from home from Georgia into Florida. So sometimes even though you get these degrees, you have to become creative because your field can become saturated so fast, you don't even know what hit you. But anyway, so let me give you guys a story, because when I teach, even in college, I teach by example so that people could remember what I have to, get the message of what the lesson was about and not just regurgitate what's in the textbook. So I have a Doctor of Pharmacy degree and now I make 6 figures. Tomorrow I may not have a job. I may not make 6 figures, right? I know a gentleman, he did not have any college degree, never been to college. And he actually had 5 pharmacies. He was 33 years of age and he was paying 5 pharmacists 6 figures. And so you ask the question, and then one day his friend said to him, you need to go to college. And he turns to his friend and he says, why? What can college do for me? This gentleman at the age of 27, because it took him about 6 years to get all 5 businesses, he had figured out, just from being an apprentice, being a technician for a couple of years, how the business was ran. And he's black, but he has Lebanese blood in him, right? So if you know anything about the Lebanese, they are very good at business. This is what they do, right? So he I guess from his ancestors, they had taught the art of business came down. So he understood how money worked. Okay, so he did an apprentice, never went to college, worked, understood how the business was ran, and every day they said he would make notes. And they were like, well, why is he making notes? I mean, he can't run the business one day. He's not a pharmacist, you know? Like, so what is he gonna do? The gentleman took a reverse mortgage on his mom's house, right? Which, by the way, most financial advisors will tell you don't do. But he took that money, opened his first business, and then started growing. And I mean, this guy was making over $600,000 a year in his salary at 33 years old, never been to college, right? But individuals go to college like myself, you rack up student loan debt thinking, oh, I'm going to make 6 figures. You get out, you make the 6 figures, but you have 6 figures worth of debt, right? Yeah. So a college degree is not entirely necessary. If you have a business plan and you can follow it, you could actually be the one employing the individuals with the doctoral degrees. It's funny how this world works. Now, does that happen to everyone? No. And it may only happen to like less than 1%. But you could be that less than 1%. You know, who's to say no, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is there are exceptions to the rules, and one mold is not going to fit everyone. So I guess I'll, stop talking and teaching, and you guys can go ahead now. All right, go ahead.
So, okay, you guys said some good stuff because I'm learning because I was telling Jamari, like, I don't know if I have a lot to say on this topic. But okay, one thing that I like that Colin said was that we need to, well, I'm speaking from a parent's perspective because traditionally the way it works is, at least in my house growing up, it was like you're going to college after high school. It wasn't like, oh, you
Yep.
love singing, you should pursue that. You know, it was just like,
Nope.
you're going to college, so what are you going to major in? You know, I mean, my daddy was like, don't pick a major because maybe he saw my state. But yeah, he was like, don't pick a major. And I didn't listen. And I wish I would have listened because I changed my major like 1,000 times. But he was like, yeah, so what college are you going to apply to? Like, that was the deal, you know? So it's very circumstantial. I feel nervous. So I understand the find yourself idea, but as an educator, sometimes I feel nervous pushing kids in that direction because they just seem so unstable to me. And I know that's not fair. And I know how I was when I was like, if I didn't have all of that guidance, yeah, like I needed to have direction. Even though it didn't work out that way, you know, I needed like that direction at that moment in my life. So it's hard for me to, you know, say that to adults unless I mean, children or young people, I should say, unless I meet someone and they are like, for sure, I can tell off the bat that they have their passion down pat. Like, if I can see that and I can see that they have like a gift, then I'm like, you know what, you should go for that. Because it's easier for me to see, and I can tell that they would go for it. Like, it's easier for me to see them being successful. But really, teenagers scare the crap out of me. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, just go to junior college if nothing happens, you know, and see what happens after that. That's really how I feel. But it's it's crazy. And then another thing you said was when you went there, they were teaching you things that you already knew. And you know how those first 2 years, which I understand why they are that way, but they're very like the first 2 years, your freshman and your sophomore year in college, are kind of like, they're not frivolous, but they're kind of like generally academic based. So whatever your major is, you won't really like dive into the major yet. And sometimes there is where all the money that you could have saved is at because you're not really practicing whatever it is that you want to do. You're learning more writing skills and more math skills and science and things like that. You know, so I don't, yeah, like maybe they need to revamp that, but I get why they do that. I get why they do that.
Yeah, because when you think about it, the public school system does not truly prepare kids, students for college. And so their writing and their mathematics skills are not up to par. And I think there's so many distractions in the public school system that when they finally get to college, they're able to really truly hone in and refresh their writing and mathematics skills. Now, some people come into college, you know, advanced, and it does seem like it's a waste of time. It does seem frivolous for them to repeat the things that they already mastered in high school. Because high school truly is supposed to prepare you for the collegiate level. Unfortunately, it doesn't, because there are two different types of teaching. And no one is holding your hand in college. And typically you may have 4 assignments in college, even 3. You may have a midterm final and a 15-page paper. And going to your course, your class, and listening to lectures on the chapters that you were supposed to read throughout the week. And if these students are not prepared for that, you're going to find a lot of students getting into debt because they're not prepared to go to college. And so those first 2 semesters, they fell out of college and they're stuck with the financial aid that was free, but now they owe because they didn't do what they're supposed to do when they got there and they weren't even prepared for it. You see what I'm saying? And so now you have a lot of people actually stuck with student loan debt that never even got their degree. And so now they're already behind the 8 ball because they're only 23, 24 years old, and their credit's all messed up, and they have nothing to fall back on. So eventually, when they turn 30, they're like, okay, let me try go back to school again. and then the process repeats itself. So that's why it's a very dangerous thing to take on these loans that are very accessible to young people. Okay. And I talked about that. It's easier. I put that on the Facebook. It's crazy that it's easier for you to get a student loan that you can be 50,000, 100,000 and up in debt. And even if you got a solid business plan, it's harder for you to get a business loan than a school loan. And so we kind of know what that is, and I think we can let others touch upon that. But that is what's really, and I think Kevon hit upon that point as well, is the market is becoming saturated in these fields such as nursing, practitioners, and things of that nature, where everybody's becoming joining this field. And pretty soon, I remember when we first college, when we first got into college in 2000, the career choice, or they was pushing everybody, was computer science. Remember that? Computer science.
Yeah.
One of our friends, our roommates that majored in computer science, when they finally finished their degree, by the time they finished that degree, all the computer science jobs were already filled up. So now, remember that? So you had a choice. Either, well, okay, let me go get my master's then, and wait for the field to, the job market to open back up again. So now you're going in debt again, and not even guaranteed a job. And so that is the scary thing about getting, because you can only defer it for so long before they start asking for that money. And you'll find out, because I help people with their credit all the time, you'll find out that the majority of people that I encounter when restoring their credit is student loans, late payments. And so that is a thing about the job market. Me and Kevon had an earlier discussion about just, I just lost my train of thought. Me and Kevon had yes, I heard a vroom. Me and Kevon had an earlier discussion about that. And, when the more challenging degrees, people tend to veer away from, but those degrees are the ones, like in the science and high-end medical fields, those are the ones that when you get that, you finish those courses, that when you do finish that degree, you're almost guaranteed a job, because that job is in high demand. And not a lot of people in America are going to those things because they're trying to go the easy route. And see, what happens is now you have other countries, people coming into our country to get those jobs. And, companies like Microsoft and Google are even saying that they want to hire people in the US, but people in the US are not qualified for that. So we're oversaturating the market with, criminal justice degrees, which I have, which is a horrible degree. We're saturating the market with social work degrees. We're saturating the market with political science, which is, I don't even know what that, what you're gonna do with that. So all these fields, those degrees, nothing for you. And I think me and Sophie touched upon that earlier today when we even talk about the leadership degree in education. If you decide to leave the education field with a master's in leadership,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do with that degree? That master's is null and void. It doesn't help you. So, but you paid all that money for it. You know what I'm saying? And I also want Kevon to touch on, because he was even saying earlier in our discussion, was that how he was able to get a lot of that schooling that he got paid for. It does require a little more research and a little more ambition, but he was able to get a lot of those things, his upper level his graduate course is paid for. And I think that is very, that's important information to know, because a lot of us are leaving money on the table when we go back, because it's quicker to get that loan than actually do your research, be diligent in your research and find that free money. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that over.
Okay, so I'm gonna need about 5 minutes to lay out the story. Okay, so it's my more or less my personal story in terms of my college degrees and finances. All right, so my mother-in-law tends to say that I'm crazy, right? But I guess she's late on that boat, because everybody, when I was young, figured that out early. And sometimes you just have to be a little crazy in order to be able to get ahead, right? And like I told Jamari earlier, yeah, I might be making 6 figures, but I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm far from where I want to be, because guess what? I still have student loan debt. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. People look at doctors and say, well, that doctor's driving a BMW. He's driving a Benz. Look at how much debt that they're in. Because once you have that doctor in front of your name, guess what you want to do? You want to go out and get the latest car, the nicest house, because now you have to live up to that, right? So I'm giving you that story because now I'm going to explain to you my different degrees and how some of them were extremely useless, right? And you will listen to them and you will say, how can you call a bachelor's in biological sciences useless? When I went to Florida International University, I actually transferred there for my bachelor, for my athletic scholarship, right? That's where I met Jamari. That's where I met Collins, right? And when I got there, I went to the Student Athletic Center, and they asked me to declare a major. So I told them that my major is going to be biological sciences. The lady who was writing down the information almost fell out of her chair laughing. And the gentleman in charge of the center, right, she went to him, and he came back to me and said, Mr. Pierre, I think you want to consider changing that major. I'm like, do they think I'm a dumb athlete? I'm like, no, I've been studying biology all my life. I can do this. Sure enough, I attempted, and my first semester I become academically ineligible, right? Because I have to work out and study at the same time. And at the time, FIU didn't recognize what athletes were, so there was no easy pass for us. You had to get the grade how you got it, just like every other student, right? I can tell you for a fact, coming from a different university, right? I have showed up to class the first day in my uniform. I'm a college athlete. Showed up to class the last day and gotten an A. True story. And it happens in NCAA. Don't let anybody else tell you different. But not at FIU. FIU will quicker fail you out. They enjoyed that, right? So actually, it was graded the 5th hardest university to get an A. True story. So once you got a degree from FIU, right? You got a degree. You didn't buy that, or you didn't play on the field to get that. You have to respect it. So any which ways, but I adapted really fast. I learned about this website called ratemyprofessor.com. So I avoided all the bad professors like the plague. And since athletes could register early, I registered for all the good professors, i.e. the ones that were there to teach and not to do research, right? So I got my money's worth, even though I was on an athletic scholarship, in learning. They taught me because those professors were there to teach, right? So I avoided the ones that were there to do research and were annoyed by teaching. So basically, what happened was I got my bachelor's in biological sciences after 4.5 solid years of studying. And then I got out of school and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a great job with this now. And I applied to a couple of jobs and nobody's hiring. Crickets. I'm like, wait a minute. This is a heck of a degree. Biological sciences? Get out of here. You know what I'm saying? I did organic chemistry 1, 2. I passed biochem after taking it like twice. And I was lucky to pass it the second time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? Like, come on, man. I didn't go to school for, what do you call it again? Social work. You know what I'm saying? Even though we do need social workers. You know what I'm saying? But I can tell you, a lot of athletes, that was their major because it was easy. I did biological sciences. I was one of like 2 athletes that did that. that I know of, right? Lo and behold, nothing. I get nothing. So I ended up teaching, and while I was teaching, I liked teaching, but I was just like something wasn't right. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and it brings me back to what you guys were saying earlier. The public school education system is failing our kids. Well, our public school education has also failed our teachers. You know, you can't have teachers coming to work and they're worried about how they're paying their rent.
Yeah.
You know, I've numerous teachers that were like that. You know, and so how do you expect them to want to put forth their best effort if by the time they get their paycheck, it's gone? You know, I knew teachers that would take in cash advance, payday cash advance, right? So I said, okay, this is not going to be my life. And some of them even justified it. It's like, this is the best profession. You're your own boss. I was like, no. The kids are your boss. The parents are your boss. And administration is not going to back you up, right? So while I was there teaching, I applied to and this is what Jamari wanted me to explain, how I got my master's for free. So I applied to the health department for a position as a health inspector. When I went for the interview, they told me, they said, how much money are you making now as a teacher? I said, well, I'm making $38,000 base pay and an additional, I think it was $3,000 because I was in a critical shortage area, which was sciences, right? Then, so I'm making about $40,000, and which is really 30 after taxes. Okay. So I like to only count my spendable income because that's all I can spend, right? So basically, what they said to me was what they said to me, they said, okay, well, there's a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? I qualify for the job, right? They said, yeah, you qualify for the job. They're like, we only pay $30,600. $30,000. So if I had accepted that job that day, I was getting a $10,000 pay cut on less than what I was living paycheck to paycheck from. The math didn't add up, right? The numbers weren't adding up. The numbers. That's why I say you guys have to listen to Dave Ramsey. He tells you, do the math. That's his favorite line. Do the math, right? So the numbers don't add up. But why did I take the job? When the lady saw the look on my face, like, holy crap, I can barely eat, and you guys gonna pay me $10,000 less a year? I can't take this job. You guys are devaluing my degree even more, right? Then she turned to me and said, she's like, according to your resume, you're thinking about going back to school to do a master's? I'm like, yes, ma'am. She said, well, there's a little known fact that the state of Florida, once you have any state job in the state of Florida, if you apply for a job through, I think it's myflorida.gov, right? As long as you get a job through the state, it could be cleaning drains, it could be anything. You are allowed 6 credits waiver per semester. That's not just fall and spring, it's fall, spring, and summer. So I asked her, I said, when she said 6 credits, basically 6 credits for free. I said, ma'am, are those graduate credits? She's like, yes. I'm like, do those include summertime also? She's like, yes. I told her, I said, where do I sign? So I signed. I signed immediately because guess what? Check this out. If I remained a teacher, right, I would have had to pay for my master's. Teachers, they say teachers can get free education. No, here's what happens. You have to pay for it, and then they reimburse you a certain percentage after you pass the class, right? So I did the math. Again, I said to myself, wait a minute. If I take this job, they pay for the class before I even take the class. And I can go to school, pass those 6 credits in graduate school, go to schools fall, spring, and summer, and it is the equivalent of going to school fall and spring with 9 credits, because fall and spring, 9 and 9 is 18. Fall, spring, summer, 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. So basically, I was a full-time graduate student for free. So I get into, I take the $30,000 pay cut, lived on rice and beans, right? And hustled from I left work at 5 o'clock. By 6:15, I was in class at FIU till 10:30 at night. Got home and started studying from like 11, go all the way back till 1, 3 o'clock in the morning. Got up and went to work from 8 all the way back. And I kept going round the clock for a year and a half. And I finished the degree. Right? So I finished it. Oh, the best part is, since I was a minority, doing a master's degree in public health and epidemiology, which, by the way, is the study of the distribution of diseases, right? Infectious diseases. I was given a $4,500 grant by the federal government through the HRSA scholarship every semester. So they were paying me to go to school. So guess what? So guess what I did now? I took that grant, right? And I paid for an extra class every semester. So I was going to school fall, spring, summer, and paying I'm doing 9 credits per semester, right? So I finished the 45 credit masters really fast. So you would think, all right, he has the masters now, he's on top. He's in a critical shortage area. He's about to make a lot of money. Life is good, right? So I get out and I apply for a job at the health department after having a 7-month internship with the CDC. And they turn to me and tell me, they say, how much money would you want for us to hire you? I said, about 55,000. Because I'm thinking to myself, man, I need to shoot low so I get the job and then I get a raise later, right? Huh. You know what? You know what they told me? The guy laughed. He literally laughed in my face and said, we don't have that kind of money. He said, the most we'll be able to pay you is 40. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I just grinded and got a degree to come out and make $40,000, a master's degree? Are you kidding me? And you want to pay me 40? Might as well I didn't go to college, right? And I remember using that master's degree and applying for at least 10 jobs a day for about a month and could not get a job. And I'm sitting down and thinking to myself, this doesn't make any sense. How many people you know have a bachelor's in biology, a master's in epidemiology? It doesn't make any sense. Like why can't I get a job? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, these are academic degrees. These aren't professional degrees. I can't physically do anything for anybody. You know what I'm saying? What can I provide to you that you absolutely need? And it started making me think to myself, okay, what does mankind need? If you're alive, you're going to need housing. So anyone that's in the housing market or anything to do with housing or development, you will have a job. If you're alive, you will die. So guess what? If you're in the funeral business, you will have a job, right? If you're alive, you have to eat. So if you're in the food business of some sort, chances are you will have a job. Now, I know of chefs that went to Cordon Bleu and different universities and got degrees and they can't find a job to save their life. So be careful with that, okay?
Right.
And if you in the business of medicine, right? There was a time that you will have a job. Now, unfortunately, the market is saturated, right? So you have to be careful with that also. But housing and death, you'll always have a job, right? But people don't need other things, okay? They really don't. Like, you know, I see some individuals open clothing stores, and I think to myself, people don't always have to buy clothes. You have to look at what people absolutely need, right? If you're going to go the non-college route. And sometimes, even when you go to college route and you get those degrees and you realize that some degrees are truly worthless. I'll be honest with you. I have 3 of them. And you sit there and be like, what can I do with this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, right? So here I am with a master's degree and I can't do anything with it. The good thing is I didn't have any student loans. So I didn't owe anybody, but I still didn't have anything, right? And then so I sit down and I said, okay, what do I do next so that I can make real money, right? And a buddy of mine that was a pharmacist, he said to me, he said, you have really good degrees. You can get into pharmaceutical really easy. And maybe one day you can own your own business. He said, actually, how the story happened is I spoke to a mechanic. The mechanic wanted to go to school to be an engineer when he was younger. He didn't get into engineering school. He went and opened his own mechanic shop. And now he makes 6 figures and he's his own boss. Guess who can fire him? Nobody. Right? So, and you know what he says to me? He says, if I had gone and become an engineer, yes, I would have been happy because I was passionate about engineering, but I wouldn't be making the money that I make now, and I wouldn't be my own boss. I wouldn't have that financial independence that other engineers, I wouldn't have that financial independence I have now that I would not have had as an engineer, right? So I say that to say this: even though your plans for one thing don't work out, keep switching it up. Just like Colin said, you know, sometimes you just have to find yourself, okay? When rich people don't take student loans, one, because they don't qualify for them, right? So I always say that as a poor or middle class individual, if you can't get student loans, your only currency is time. So use your time wisely to figure out where you want to go and don't waste it, right? And that's all I got to say. So I'll get off my diatribe, let you guys go ahead and give your story. You know what I'm saying? And if you want to chime in again, let me know.
Well, keep
I
on.
actually wanted
What
to chime
about
in there because
passion? Well, you guys keep downplaying passion. You don't feel like.
No.
Today,
Hold on.
Actually, I went to this show, and this man, he is a motivational speaker, and he was talking about how you need to live life happy. He was saying that he used to work for some industry, and he was making like, you know, a lot of money, millions of dollars.
Is it Les Brown?
He just wasn't happy.
Is it Les Brown?
Huh?
Les Brown? The motivational speaker.
His name was I don't remember it, but I can get it for you guys in a second.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just saw him today at a show. It wasn't like on YouTube. I went to a show and he was there as a speaker. Okay, so he basically was saying, you know, you're better off thinking about what it is that you love to do and doing that to the fullest, you know, and maybe trying to find like creative ways to do that so that you make money. But he was saying going after the money is not going to make you feel fulfilled. It's going to make you rich. And he was saying that there's a difference. I mean, I get like, you know, life tells you go get a job and go get that job. You got to do what you have to do. But what about, like, remember, Kevon, you mentioned that 1%. Like, what about people going after that who already know what they want to do and know their, you know, like, because it seems like you guys are like really pushing for being strategic about getting the money. But like, what about the other part, the fulfilling part?
So the great motivator, Les Brown, right? And you guys should YouTube him too, right? Because many of you, including myself, may be too young to know who that is, right? Les Brown once said, he said, everyone says money don't make you happy, but everyone want to find out for themselves, right? So I can tell you, right, that I have walked away from 3 6-figure jobs. Like, get up and said, okay, this is it, took my license off the wall and walked out, right? And I was making money, but I had anxiety attacks going to work because I was thinking to myself, what fresh hell awaits me, right? So, you're right. It's not always about the money, but I can tell you this. When you open that refrigerator, right, and you realize that, wait a minute, there's nothing in here, and it hits you, I was just here 5 minutes ago. Why am I back at the refrigerator? A light bulb comes on, and it's not the one in the refrigerator, okay? It flashes in your mind like, wait a minute, I cannot continue to live this life. I can't, okay? So I totally get, yes, I want to go after my passion. I want to follow my dreams, right? But you have to still pay the bills. And this is the reason why an article came out that majority of the millennials in South Florida still live at home with their parents. I was 18 years old when I left my parents' house, and I have not been back. okay, have not been back, right? And I know individuals that are 39 still living at home with their parents, okay? And why is that? Because they never got, they, they were always more or less taught, go after your passion, right? But sometimes you have to change the plan. You have to. When I was young, I wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, right? Um, the chances of that happening was slim to none, especially with the public school education that I received, right? So because I didn't get that, did that stop me from continuing to go to school and getting a better degree, or bettering my financial situation? No. You know what I'm saying? I changed the plan, and and today I can keep changing it up if I have to, if need arises, because guess what? The bills have to get paid. All right. I understand what you're saying. Go after your passion, right? But at some point you have to eat. You have to pay the bills. You have to pay the rent. Mom and dad is not gonna. They won't be there to shelter you all the days of your life, even though some parents do like to believe it. It's not gonna happen. It's impossible. Okay. Even if they took out a life insurance policy, right, and said, well, when I die, my kid is gonna be $500,000 richer. Well, what happens if you outlive that policy? If it's a term life, then what? Then the kid sits down and get mad because mom and dad didn't die before the policy expired, right? So I encourage young people, look at the markets, understand what's going on, and be flexible, okay? Because there is more than one or two or three multiple avenues out there that can be explored, right? So, the world is yours.
I had something to add, specifically around the area of what I always like to focus on when I'm teaching my clients and kids and things like that is the how. Focus on the how. All right. A lot of times we get a lot of the what's, especially from teachers and motivators, and they tell us the what's. Even our parents, they tell us the what's. Oh well, that's what. Go to college. That's a what. Figure out what you want in life. That
yeah. I said follow your dream.
Yeah, follow your dream.
Yeah.
Figure out what you want to do in life. Yeah, that's a what, but they don't teach the hows, right? So in my area, I focus specifically around the hows, right? In my teaching strategies, right? And so what I do is first I look at, well, first, how did I do it, or how did others that would have been successful in those areas do it, right? And so the hows, those are the harder, more intangible questions to answer usually. But specifically around like, okay, reflect and find out what you want to do in life, right? Find out what you really want to do, and then follow that. Well, a lot of people, they don't know what their passion is because they were never really asked, or they never really asked themselves. So they weren't put in that space. They were just in the mill of go to school, do this, go to do your homework, get good grades, do whatever, blah, 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 blah. It's just a mill, all right? It's a factory. Spitting out slaves. That's what it really is. It's spitting out slaves. Like, what is the public education system? It's a slave maker, right? It makes you slaves. That's what you do. You learn. The highest aspiration that you have is to graduate and become successful and get a job. You're still a slave. You're still working for somebody else. You still have less because you're taught not to spend your money properly. You're taught not to budget properly. You're taught to, like Kayvon said, oh, now you're a doctor. Okay, but now you got to drive a doctor's car. You got to live in a doctor's house. You can't be living in, an apartment or living in a guest house being a doctor. And so we're taught how to keep, no matter how much money we make, to spend more, right? So that's a slave system. Regardless if you're making money, you're still living in debt. You're still living in the red, right? So now there's a how. There's a couple simple hows, right? That I use when I'm working with people that are lost and they don't really know what they want to do in life, right? And the first is the genie question, all right? And y'all can take this and utilize with any kids that you're teaching and share it with your family and your friends, all right? And the genie question is, if there were no rules, right, and if anything was possible, right, and a genie, you got a lamp and a genie popped out of there and said, hey, you can have any profession, any occupation, that you want in life, what would it be? Right? Now, you have to present those caveats in the beginning because automatically the person will go into what they think is realistic.
Right.
Well, I can't be an astronaut. I want to be an astronaut, but I can't be an astronaut. Because I want to go to space. Somebody will be, hey, I want to be a singer, and you might be tone deaf, right? And so the person's like, well, I know I'm tone deaf. If I could, I'd be a singer, but I can't sing. I know I can't sing, right? So, but first, that's why you have to put in, hey, there are no rules, and you don't have to do it. It doesn't have to be realistic. It can be completely far-fetched. If you could do something, what would it be?
Yeah.
Right? And give them the permission to get past their identity and the issues that block them in their identity. Give them permission to and you don't have to do it, but just like if you could, you give them that caveat. And a genie came down and said, hey, you could do, not you can have anything you want in life, because that's too broad. They'd be like, oh, I want to be happy. I want to be rich. I want to be this. No, like this is specifically around what do you want to do in your life on a day-to-day basis to provide for that way of you making sure you look in your fridge and you got some food in there. Ideally, what's the ideal situation? And when you ask them that question, it kind of puts it in the unrealistic thing, like, well, shit, if it was perfect, I'd be a fill in the blank, right? So I'll as a matter of fact, let's do a practice of that so that the people that are listening at home can actually see how that works. Okay, so Sophie, would you be willing to be a participant in this question?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So let's say you got, you found a lamp, you got a genie, he pops out. He says you can do anything that you want in life, but it ain't got to be realistic. It can be completely, crazy. And you don't have to actually follow through with it. This is just like, hey, well, if I could just snap my fingers and make this happen, this is what I would do as an occupation. What would it be?
I would be a writer.
Awesome. Okay, so now check the smile. Now, I want everybody who's looking and paying attention to this, look at the smile on Sophie's face, right? So it's undeniable, right? And so that's one of the checks of how do you make sure that the person is actually being authentic with their answer. Right now, the spirit, there's little telltale signs of the spirit when you're being authentic, which is true to yourself, or just honest, which is true to your mind. Right. And so one of those undeniable things is the smile and laughter. Right. When you do that, when you show those signs, that shows that your spirit answered the question and not just your mind answering the question. So then the next step is, okay, once you do that, because that's the check. Like, because, people will say, oh, well, what I'm doing is what I want, because they don't want to admit that they're not being happy at what they're doing. All right. So, oh, well, I'm doing what I want to do. And their faces like that. Or they do one of those forced smiles like, yeah, I'm doing what I want to do. I love what I'm doing. And so you could tell they're just afraid of really being truthful with their spirit. They're being truthful to their mind of what their limitations are and what they think is safe and stuff like that. So that's one way, you can ask that question to your students and ask to your friends and also specifically to yourself. And on a day-to-day basis, you can ask this. And you can rinse, lather, repeat. Just like Kayvon said, like, hey, you could be in a situation like, yo, I don't like this. Like, what specific hell am I going to? And then be willing to ask yourself that question again, because it might shift and it might change. At one point in time for me, it was to make music. What I loved to do, but I didn't think that was realistic. I didn't think that was a tangible, realistic plan to go for. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yeah, but I can't do that. I can't do that. That's too hard. That's too difficult. Like, what are the odds of that? And that 1% scenario that Kayvon stated is ask yourself the question, why can't I be part of that 1%? Why can't I? Why can't I be part of that? The one of specific few people that go after what they want to do and then are successful within that career. Because we never know who that 1% is. So anybody really could be that 1%. And that 1% could actually grow in a morphic field aspect, right? In a morphic field is like just to give a basic, quantum physics background on it, is that the idea that we all affect each other, right? In ways that are intangible, that we can't even, not that we're just saying things, but just the way that we're being and the way that we feel actually affects a global community, right? So if more and more people start asking themselves that question, just like before, the morphic field of the college education was not there 50 years ago. That was not the thing. Back then it was, could you graduate high school?
Yeah.
50 years ago, it was, could you graduate high school? The morphic field transferred and shifted to wanting a college education as a possibility within the last, I would say 30 years, right? Where our parents didn't necessarily get that college education, but were told at that point, man, your life would have been so much better if you were college educated. And then you tell your kids to go ahead and do that. And then now your kids are in that space. But at that point, when they were like 20 and 23 and 30 years old, that high school diploma wasn't all it took anymore. So the bar kept stretching. It's like a carrot, and then for us, in our actually in the middle of our generation, it was like the college degree. And then after that, now we in the masters and the doctorates. Like it'll eventually be like, okay, I can't get a job unless I get a doctorate, right? And then after that, it'll be like, oh, you can't get a job unless you have 2 or 3 doctorates, right? And so it'll keep on stretching. But to get to that, how do I find out what the heck I want to do with my life? How do I make that choice? That genie question is a great access point because it gives you the possibility of really getting to your spiritual side to like, okay, once I do make the money in that profession, once I do that, will I be happy? Right? Because I can say from my own personal experience, I have worked with closely and bonded with closely millionaires and billionaires within the music industry. Now you would think that within that industry is like, okay, yeah, you could have a specific hell going to a pharmaceutical job. You could be thinking like, yeah, I'm dealing with sick people. Yeah, I could see somebody being miserable doing that, but it's very difficult to picture somebody being miserable singing for a living, or making music for a living, or rapping for a living, or dancing for a living. Like, no, you got the best scenario. But no, it could be hell if that's not what you authentically wanted to do. A lot of people become singers and entertainers because their passion was to be rich. They just wanted to be rich. Right. They wanted to be wealthy, right? But they didn't stop to think and do the research around that specific field and be like, okay, well, what's the life like when you're doing that? What is the life like? So when you take that time, first you ask yourself what it is that you want to do, right? That with that genie question. And then the next step is you then start doing the research. Call people within that profession, the people that you might idolize or look up to or feel are, successful in that field. Find their numbers. We're in the internet now, right? So find their numbers. Call them up. You can say, hey, I'm a high school student, or I'm a college student, and I want to do some research in the field. I would like to ask you a few questions about your profession and how you got successful and what your life is like. Would you be willing to, to do an interview? And do an interview, and you interview the people that you are aspiring to be like. Like, this is a reality. This is a realistic expectation. You can call up Tony Robbins. You might not get him the first time. You might not get him the second time, but just like you went to that, motivational speaker seminar, you can bust down the door. Go to the thing, and you might not have the money to go to Tony Robbins seminar, right? But you can take a bus and you can wait outside, and you be like, Tony, I just have to speak to you. I just want to get your number. I just want 15 minutes of your time so I can ask you a couple questions. Kind of bold and courageous, unrealistic, seemingly unrealistic things that you can do can actually be a great asset to you finding out for sure if that thing is what you want to do. Right? Because I can tell you these people are successful. I've worked with Prince, Michael Jackson, will.i.am, Apple, Kylie Minogue, all of these people, they're miserable. Miserable. When I say miserable, like miserable. And I thought I knew misery when I was growing up in Miami. I thought I knew miserable, but I didn't know miserable until I saw people who had achieved their goals in life. Like they actually achieved their goals and then were just realized that those goals weren't anything for them, right? It wasn't worth anything. Like they exchanged. They're still in debt. They're in spiritual debt because they hate what they do. Right. They hate what they're about. They just went for the money and they took the deals and they did things like that. So the realistic way that you can, do a how is ask yourself that genie question, right? Then, ask the people, anybody, within those fields or anybody that you see as successful in their field. It doesn't even have to be that your specific field. It could be anybody in a specific field, and just ask them the questions that you would want to know. Like the real question you would want to know, like, yo, what's your experience like going to work? What is your experience like leaving work? Are you happy when you go to work? If so, why? And if no, why? Ask them these questions. They may not know, but you ask enough people, you can actually get a realistic answer and start to get a feel for your field of expertise that you are going to start struggling and working through and sacrificing for. To be in the position that Kevon was or Jamari was or I was, and be working within that field, and by that time realize, damn, I do not want to do this. And then you spend all of that time and energy becoming successful in a field that ultimately gave you no joy and no happiness and no fulfillment. Right. And so when you ask those, and another question you can ask yourself, another how is ask myself, what's the most important things in my life? And just put it on a priority level. Right. Like, and the process of how to get to those, how do I get what my priorities are? Is you ask yourself, if I had this and nothing else, would I be happy? If I had to give up this or this thing, which thing would I be willing to give up? It's not that you have to, but if you had to give up, if I had to give up making music every day, right? Or making a difference to people through counseling every day, what would I give up if I had to? Right? And I'd be like, well, I'd give up music. I've done everything that I wanted to do in music. I've achieved all of the goals that I wanted to achieve in music. So there's a new adventure that I want, right? And that's within making a difference on a global scale, right? So if I had to give one of those up, what would I, which would go first? I did that also with family. Like if I had to have a wife or have my purpose, what was more important? If I had a girlfriend, or this girlfriend, if I had to give up one for the other, which would be more important? Which would give me the most happiness? Right? Which scenario would provide for the most happiness and or peace? When I ask that question authentically to myself, and then you listen to the answer to that question, and then you state it out loud just to feel the frequency. Like check yourself in the mirror. Answered that, because the smile might. I really don't care what I do on a day-to-day basis. I just want to be happy. Okay, so now what do I do while being happy? How do I be happy first, and then just pick whatever that I'm doing?
I think back to what Sophie said earlier, especially when you have a family, it's not always based on what's necessarily going to make you happy, realistically. And I think one of the ways that my father raised me, he didn't raise me for a specific field, and there was not truly one specific field that I wanted to get into. The human mind doesn't work like that. The human mind is very curious about a multitude of things. If you study history, most people have many occupations, and if you really want to call them occupations, they're more so hobbies that they learn how to create a stream of income from. But when you have a family, one thing that you are going to learn is you're going to have to do certain things that you may not want to do to ultimately get to where you want to go.
Oh, of course.
What you can't lose is focus. And I think a lot of times when we go into our fields, or when we turn 18 and we go to college and we get into our careers, we lose focus on our authentic self as far as what's going to make us happy. All right. Is your occupation going to take so much time away from you where you can't come home and do the things that make you happy? Right.
Right.
My father was in the military, and he ultimately did things when he came home that made him happy, from fishing to setting up his aquariums to gardening. To this day, he still does that thing. So you have a lot of people who haven't even developed their hobbies. They don't even know what they really like. So when they come home, they feel miserable because their career is taking so much of their time that they can't authentically be happy. So they think, hey, I have to make more money, because if I'm going to work every single day at this job, I should make more money. So I'm going to go back to school so I can make more money. And then you find out that you're not making more money. You're just in further debt. And you're in more debt because the career field that you chose, right? Like Kavan said earlier, the math doesn't add up. The math does not add up. So you'll have somebody that's miserable about being a social worker or a teacher, right? And then getting masters in social work. That doesn't make any sense. You're miserable going to work, but you're going to go to get a master's in it. You're going to get a master's in being miserable. Okay. And so what happens, we're in a society right now that's saying school, 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 school. A master's is not the masters of old anymore. A master's means nothing. I know everybody that has a master. Anybody that has a bachelor's has a master's probably. Okay, everybody's going there because the minute they finish a bachelor's, they probably can't get a job or a good job, so they go get the master's and they recoup on some financial aid, right? And then now you got people getting a doctorate. There's going to be a time where even having your doctorate is not that important because everybody's going to freaking have one. And it really depends on what is your doctorate in?
Well,
what is your
and you're right, because it has gotten to that point now. It's called the postdoc. So you get the doctorate.
They added another one.
They ask you, what's your postdoc?
I knew it.
It's already gotten to that point. So get the doctoral degree, and then they say, well, where's your postdoc? Where's your fellowship? And the bar will continue to rise because guess what? More individuals are getting to the top because they're told that that's what they need. What degree does Donald Trump have?
Hello, the president of the United States.
Right.
And
he probably doesn't have any degrees.
Effective president.
A multi-billionaire. What degree? So, and not everybody's going to be a Donald Trump. I mean, talking about from the financial aspect, right? So, but at the same time, you have to understand that, look, the people, all this education is not adding up to wealth. There's probably more people that didn't go to college that are rich than those that went to college that are still a hamster on the wheel. So when do we start waking up and be like, wait a minute, hold on now. This isn't right. Like, I'm not saying college is useless because guess what? When I was in high school, right? We took calculus in high school, right? And then some students that hated math, they would always be like, why do I have to study this? This doesn't make any sense. What is this going to do for me, right? And then I asked myself the question, this person might be onto something. What is it going to do for them? Well, you know what it does? It teaches you problem solving skills. It teaches you how to think on the drop of a dime. That's what it does. That's what math does for you. Okay? It teaches you, okay.
I respectfully disagree there, right?
It teaches you that, look, if I have a problem, right, and I can't solve it one way, is there another way I can look at it from and be like, can I solve it? Is there another option to solve this problem? And so it may teach you skills that you can use in life to be successful. So education is not entirely useless, right? It's just how much
mostly.
It's just how much we pay for it. And by the way, I'm not saying for it to be free, because if education becomes free, I'm telling you, it's going to become a disaster. Because then,
man, look at Finland.
Will not value it. It's going to be valueless.
No, look at Finland. There are entire countries that their education is all free, and they are the leaders in their fields of expertise. You look at Finland, I believe Sweden, and they're not only just like great
live in America.
People that
you live in America.
Let me like America does not mean that you have to limit your abilities of what you can achieve based on what America tells you. Because based on you, okay, we live in America. You black, you're supposed to get shot. Okay, you're living in America. You're not supposed to go for nothing. Like, I don't care where the hell I am. I am a god. Right? Okay. So I don't care where I am. Whatever my options are in life, I'm gonna try and do whatever I can to make them be the way that I want them to be, rather than what it's my surrounding and my environment tells me I'm allowed to have. So when I always try to learn from greater quote unquote civilizations or greater situations than myself. So that it makes it a lot easier in your process of learning, like choosing what you're going to learn. Me personally, I chose to focus on happiness. Right now, of course, out of all of you guys, I'm almost 1,000% sure I make less money than each one of you. But I know I'm happier than each one of you. I know that. Now, you guys see, it's understanding just the metaphysics of the mind, where whatever you focus on, that's what you're going to go for. That's what you're going to experience. So I chose specifically to learn, how do I be happy? Because I was angry and miserable all the time, right? So I was like, how do I be happy? Well, I just want to be happy. So I focus on finding the lessons of happiness. Now, some choose wealth, right? And then to become more and more wealthy. Now, if I had to choose either or, I would be happy over broke, right? Happy and broke over wealthy and not. But for somebody, that might not be their authentic thing. For themselves, they might be like, yo, I'd rather be
I'm gonna say,
rich.
if you got a family,
I'd rather be rich.
You better not be happy and
I was gonna say, you're right, Jamar. Calling some of the kids you have.
Bro,
if you got a
specifically,
family,
now see, that comes to choices. I do not have any children. I specifically don't have a children because of the financial aspect. Right?
Listen, that's what it all comes down to. That's what it all comes down to. Like if you have a family, like if I didn't have a family, I can sleep out on the road and be happy, you know? But I have a family and I can't sleep out on the road because they're gonna be sleeping on the road with me and it's not gonna be a good thing. Okay. Now to bounce back to the concept of what you were saying is Finland and what Carl was saying is Finland is not America. America is way bigger than Finland. Period. It's way bigger than Sweden. Period. Okay. We have a thing in this country called a rationing system, which if you can afford to go to school, go to school. If you can't, you might need to find something else. That's a rationing system, a rationing device. If everybody gets it, it will be devalued a little. The value of education will go down because you'll have people, hold on, pause. Hold on.
Go ahead.
You will have people that are not scholars. Not everybody's meant to be a scholar. That's a fact, right? And you will have people go to school. How many people get financial aid and still don't do well in school? They get financial aid, they get their school paid for, and they still fell out of school. Now imagine that the people that are not meant to go to school, going to school just to cause a ruckus, going in there just to fail out. You will have a large percent of people going to school and failing out, wasting their time and messing up the education system. Not everything.
Okay, why do you say that? What
I'm saying is not everything is for everybody. The public education school system, everybody's already getting that free education. Hold on, everybody's already getting that free education, right? Whether you deem it good or whether you deem it bad. There's a thing called the library. You want education? Go take your ass to the library where it's free to get a library card, right? There are certain things that you can do. Who's going to pay for that? See, it's a beautiful concept, but who's going to pay for all the education if it's free? Who's going to pay for it? I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to pay for a kid. Hold on. I don't want to pay for somebody that's going to go to school just to freaking drop out. Because
how can you tell that? You can't tell that.
That
is a question that you cannot tell who is going to actually do it or not. What I'm saying is when you those questions have been answered by other countries. They have been answered. Like there are solutions to these problems that we got. You know, not everybody has solutions to every problem, but every part of the world has found solutions to a certain part of the world's problems.
Can I explain?
Finland might have figured out how to pay for all of that. Finland.
Listen, can we use everybody? If that's the thing, can we use Japan as an example of having one of the lowest crime rates in the world? No, we can't use them as an example. Why? Because most people in Japan are freaking Japanese. They all fall under the same culture and same historical background. Here in America, there are a multitude of cultures and backgrounds. You can't put everybody on the same doggone stem. You just can't.
You just did.
You
just did. You said here in America.
No, listen to what I'm saying.
The concept of America's culture, right? Like, you know, of course, yes, you cannot put everybody. Yeah, you cannot put everybody. All I'm saying is, if you're looking for a solution to a problem, right? It is beneficial in most times to see if somebody else has found a solution to that problem already and see if it could be possibly applicable. Now, it's not always going to be applicable. Yes, you know, not everybody just bows religiously, you know, and shows respect when they enter each other's space like they do in Japan. However, there are still certain aspects that we can pull from those cultures. Now, we don't have to pull everything, right? But we can pull certain aspects and certain solutions that are applicable that will allow to give some realistic possibility of change in that situation. It's realistic. Now, it is not unrealistic to say that America could adopt some of the values or the positions or the ways that Finland deals with their education system specifically. Why is that not unrealistic? Because Finland did that. They were exactly where we were. This was like
this is what I'm saying to you.
within the last 30
I'm not
years.
disagreeing.
They transferred and changed.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying as far as pulling from other cultures. I'm saying when you want to make an educational, especially higher education, which costs way more than public high school education and elementary education, right? My thing is the same thing when Bernie Sanders said it. I'm not getting all hyped up about that because who's going to pay for it?
Okay,
who's going to pay for
it, guys?
Everybody will pay for it. Everybody will pay for it.
I'm not paying for it.
Yes, because everybody pays for a lot of things that we don't agree with, so they can pay.
Exactly. You're already doing that. If you're already paying for stuff you don't want,
guys. Because we tried this the government, that's kind of where the Pell Grant came from. And so like if you went to a junior college, you pretty much were guaranteed your financial aid paid. So there's 2 years like kind of off the bat, or university, but like mostly anybody could have gotten their 2 years paid off. So we were moving in that direction. We're kind of like going backwards, but we were moving in that direction at one point. And then another thing that I wanted to say about earning a degree. I forgot what I was going to say. It was something that Jamari said about people. I was going to say there are people, you said, some people, in essence, you said like people don't value education enough to give that kind of opportunity out, like as a whole. And so we have to be careful with that. But I will tell you, I know people who have a degree who are not scholarly, who don't have an essence of scholarship about them. So it really is, you know, however they got the degree, I don't know if they paid for it or whatever, but you know, there's an argument. And I know like a lot of people who have a degree, and if you don't know they have that degree, you wouldn't know they had it.
You would not know. You would not know.
So it's kind of like, you know, why not give everybody a chance to go for it if they want to? And there can be stipulations. If you're flunking out, you lose your scholarship money or your free registration.
Like, I'm gonna give you a perfect good example. The money's out there. If you really want the money, if you really want to go to school, you can find the money. Kavan has already stated that. But when you sit there and you make it where for me, it's a slippery slope. It's scary if we're gonna just let everybody go. Just go ahead, because what happens is, let's do the Mansa Musa. What is it?
Mansa Musa. He gave everybody gold and devalued gold, right?
It just devalued the gold. He had so much gold that gold was worthless, right? So if you do that, I'm just saying, like, look at the bachelor's degree. And we just talked about it. Everybody has a bachelor's degree. Everybody has one. And it's not enough. It's really not enough, right?
But wouldn't it be better if everybody had enough but didn't have the debt, though? Like, if you could have not enough without the debt, that'd be awesome.
Listen.
Then the people would use their degree creatively, but now they can't. They got to go get that paycheck. They got to be
right.
Let me go do this so I can make sure I can pay that.
One thing, again, like I said, you know, Kavan stated it earlier. The greatest thing about the human experience is adaptability. You got to be adaptable. So don't wake up. You would hear people say, you know, just because you're 6'7", and I was born to play basketball. No, you weren't. If basketball didn't exist, what would you be doing? What would you be doing? Because you're tall, would you be picking oranges out of a tree because you're tall? Huh? No. You got to be adaptable. It's about finding something that you love to do, right? And you're not going to always find something that you love to do and be able to create wealth from it. Right, but you want to say, hey, if I'm going to be doing this, like I stated earlier, if I'm going to be doing this from 9 to 5, I want to make sure that I can have time to do this. Okay, in the perfect world, everybody will be entrepreneurs, but not everybody has the mindset to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody has the ambition to be an entrepreneur. So most people just want to give them something to do, and then make sure they can be happy at the end of the day, right? But you got to be adaptable. Think about this. 10 years ago, the iPhone, didn't exist. Applications didn't exist. Now you got people going to school to make apps. right? You got people going to school to program applications, right? That didn't exist a couple years, a decade ago. So now, if the person that was raised say, I want to be a firefighter, then he found out he can create apps and he has ideas about how to create applications. What if he just said, I want to be a firefighter? Then maybe certain applications wouldn't exist if he wasn't adaptable. See, the job market is going to change within the next 5 to 10 years, just because the technology is changing at an exponential rate. And if we're not adaptable, if we keep getting social work, nursing, they even have a doggone automatons that can do surgeries now. Even the medical field is in trouble. Okay, so all these type of things, you got to be. You have to be a thinker and you have to be adaptable. You cannot go and say, I'm just going to be stuck on this, and that's all I'm going to do. The teaching field, that's going to be gone. So look, Google has Google Class. They have all types of ways to learn online. So why am I going to send my kid to a classroom where the teacher has 25 kids in there and she can't even manage 35 kids, and we're asking her to manage all these personalities, right? And also be a social worker and also be a psychologist in a classroom, right? When I can have my kid log on and learn the stuff online and not have all these different perceptions and ideologies going to my kid's mind when I just want my kid to be educated. Because kids are not just being educated at school, they're learning a whole bunch of other things from other families and backgrounds that you don't want them to learn and experience. So these fields are also in trouble. So the crazy thing is, like Kevon said, no matter how successful, no matter how much money he makes, if he's making so he understands that at the end of the day, you're still working for somebody. And at the end of the day, that can cease to exist. You can get fired. You can be let go. They can try you to the point where like, hey, I got to walk away from this. So the thing that you have to empower yourself is be an adaptable person, be a thinker, try not to get yourself too far in debt, going to school, learn, right? My dad told me one thing. He said, steal knowledge, right? I took it literally, so I should steal books from the library, right? So you got to steal knowledge any way that you can. You got to get it any way that you can. Beat the system. Find that. They got left-handed grants. They got grants for you being black. They probably got grants for you having dreads. They probably got grants for you being a mother. They got all types of grants, and they never give out a year because nobody's looking for them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Happiness is one thing. Being broke is another. I can't be happy and broke in my household. I just can't. I won't have a wife.
Right.
And my
So
kids
that might
hate
be your right. So then when you ask as far as priorities, right? When I was going back to that same question of what your priorities are for you, you know that money might be more important, right? For you under doing what the job that I want to do. Right. So if that's your authentic thing, if that's what lights you up, if that's which is not, by the way, Jamari, because I could tell. But if that was your authentic priority, right, then you'd be happy in that scenario where, hey, I got my wife, I got my kids, and I got my job, and I don't care what my profession is, right? As long as I got my wife and my kids and I'm making money, then I'm gonna be happy, right? So at the end of the day, we're experiential beings, right? We all gonna die. You make all this money and you do all this stuff, we still gonna die anyway. So all we got is our experiences once we die, right? And at the same time, the idea of how how to get to access to those things. Of course, there's no one way. There's no one way to be successful or happy in life. You know,
That's true. That's true.
Some dudes who are happy being bums on the street. Dude was a doctor. Oprah interviewed this guy. He was a doctor. He had a mansion over in Malibu. He had his wife. He had multiple kids. Right? He had the whole thing, the whole nine. Everything was fantastic, a successful practice. And then he realized, man, I'm miserable. I hate going to work. I hate coming home. This sucks. Right? And then he just stopped everything. He left everything to them and just went and lived on Skid Row. Now,
I actually met someone like that.
And he's happy. So at the end of the day, you know, yeah, you can be, look, I don't care what anybody wants to admit. I don't care what they're in their space around, you know, at their present day in their lives, in their evolution of mankind, or whatever they are in their spirit. You want to be happy and you want to be at peace, period. We're not happy if we're unhappy. And if we're unhappy doing what we want on a day-to-day basis for the majority, and we also don't have something to compensate for that lack of happiness, Because, you know, like Jamari said, hey, his dad might be happy if he comes home and has ability to garden, and he had, you know, for the amount of days, it might work out. It might work out where he's like, okay, well, I'm doing this job 9 to 5, but then I come home and from 6 till 12, I'm doing this thing that I really love to do. So boom, I balance out. I'm on an even keel, right? And so the individual, of course, just has to ask themselves authentically, yo, what's the most important, you know, and then put it in order, and then make your sacrifices accordingly. And then if it's your education that you want, because that's what you need in order to do that profession that you want, go for it. If it's not, do not do it. You will not be happy. You will be miserable. Going for what your parents told you to do, or what your friends tell you to do, or what you think society tells you to do, you will be miserable. You'll be a successful, miserable person. And at the end of the day, you won't be sleeping well at night.
And I think
I like to be able to sleep at night.
We need, as far even in the education system, I think is definitely needed that we teach kids to be, as I say, you know, teach them to be thinkers. When I'm talking to myself, I teach be a thinker. As long as you are a thinker, you can go far in life, because you'll always be adaptable and you can always pick up something new. All right.
How do you teach your son, Mark, to be a thinker? What's the way that you go about that for people that are like me? I would like to know how to teach my son how to be a thinker, or my sister, or my friends, or whatever. How would you teach them?
My dad always raised me on initiative. Always take initiative, right? So taking initiative is simple. Thinking begins like this. You know what your dad. When I was raised, I know what my dad wanted to be done in the house. So it shouldn't have to tell me to cut the grass, right?
Okay.
When you're looking at information or processing information, how you get someone to think is you begin to ask them questions.
Okay.
Let them process it. Let them get the wrong answer.
Okay.
So you can find out why it's wrong, and we can get the right answer. Don't ever allow your kids to be afraid to have the wrong answer. See, we like even in the school systems, teachers yell at kids or make kids feel uncomfortable for having the wrong answer.
Get the wrong answer, yeah.
But having the wrong answer is the first step of getting to the right answer. Okay, simply being a thinker is how you process information and how you go about processing that information. So, man, when it came to my father teaching me how to just think, my dad always said this. I remember, and it was fun. I didn't get it until I got older. Like if I said, like if he told me to cut the grass, maybe I forgot, or maybe he told me to do the living room, maybe I forgot, and I said, well, I thought. He said, well, what I tell you about thoughting? You know, thought is not a word. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, what I tell you about thoughting? Think. Because now that I got it now. I said, oh shoot, because when you thought, you're always thinking in past tense. But when you're thinking, you're always thinking in the now and in the future tense. So what he said, stop thinking in the past and think in the present moment. Think about what I would want you to do, right? So if you're learning to do that, if you're constantly paying attention and have your ears to what's really going on in the world and not being so focused on what you think that you want, because the world is changing and your wants will always change as well. So if you find out what inherently you want to do, as I said earlier, man, maybe you like to fish all day long, but maybe you can't make a career out of fishing. Some people can, and maybe you can't. But make sure whatever you're doing, that you still have that time to pursue that passion, pursue that love. Kavon, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but he has a collection. And my man makes all type of work. You know what I'm saying? And that is his bomb too. Yeah, and he has a hobby, and he makes sure that's his hobby. That's what he does. He you know, and he takes it to another level. So Sophie, she's an actress. She's in theater, right? So she's gonna do the thing that she loves, okay? And if you can make a living doing that, then that's great. But some people don't, like when somebody says, well, you act, why don't you try to be like in a movie? They're like, well, I'm just happy being in theater. Yeah. I'm just happy on the weekends that I get to pursue this. And it's not about the money. It's about, like you said, it's about being happy. But see, the thing is, what we do when we choose our career field, you'll have kids look and say, oh, this career makes $75,000. or this makes 65,000. I'm going to do this, right?
Yeah.
They're chasing money, and they're chasing money, and they're not pursuing wealth. And wealth is tied into happiness and success and into love, right? That's wealth. And then wealth is also when you have a family, right? I want to be able to give my kids something. So this is why I became an entrepreneur. I want to be able to give my kids something when I am gone. I can't give them a job, right? You know what I'm saying? No matter if I work at a school, a principal of a school can't even give his kids a job at the school. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Pass that on. Matter of fact, he can't even decide what school he wants to teach at, right? They could move him tomorrow to another school. So at the end of the day, you got to understand that when you're choosing that career field, you got to be careful, because in this society, it's a debt society. And this is one of the reasons why they put school on everybody. It's a debt society. And you're going to be in debt if you don't choose the right path to go to. Make sure, listen, you could be a social worker without going to school being a social worker. Okay? And there are other paths you can go to. You could be a teacher without necessarily getting to having a bachelor's, I believe. There's a bunch of different routes.
I've had 2 schools. I've had 2 schools. I did not even graduate. I didn't graduate. I created my own 2 educational programs. So I became a teacher without somebody telling me that I could be a teacher, you know, and people wanted to learn. If you're good at what you do, you know, and you love what you do, people will want to learn from you. You know, this is creativity. You can definitely be creative about how you go about it.
Well, let me bring up what Jamari said in that last moment about entrepreneurship, because, oh, wait a minute. Are you still talking, Colin? Because I can't hear you.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No.
I wanted to bring up what Jamari said in that last statement about entrepreneurship, because I kind of want to open the floor to the people who are chatting, because they're giving some good feedback. So Denisha said, most people just want shortcuts. And she was talking about when Damari mentioned becoming an entrepreneur, but most people this is her that I'm quoting right now. Most people just want the end result instead of creating their own to gain and keep profit. But all in all, it depends on the process. And she referenced when we were talking about happiness. So your happiness is not my criteria. This is what she said of happiness. And the same carries out for other people. In other words, what makes you happy will not make me happy.
Right.
Especially when you ask others to describe what success means to them. Really nice statement. And then she said, here's something else that people do, and what this man is mentioning, someone on the panel, Colin probably, measuring happiness just to make it complex, because it is not that deep. So that was Denisha online in the chat live. So what do you guys think about that? First of all, measuring happiness, right? Because everyone's ideal of happiness, and Jamari had a really good example of that. His father worked every day, but his love was fishing, something that made him happy. So he was able to make sure that at any time that he came home, if that's what he needed to be in his happy place, he went fishing. And I can attest to my dad having fishing as a hobby also, and that was his thing, you know. Once a week he went fishing. He had Mondays off, and that's when he went fishing. So I mean, that's a good point that Denisha is making in the live chat, that we have to consider how we measure happiness, and we have to consider the complexity of happiness, you know. So what do you guys think about that?
I think I would chime in as far as what she's saying about, you know, people like to take shortcuts. First of all, that's the human mind. The human mind is always trying to shortcut everything. This is why you see patterns when there are no patterns. Okay, this is why when you have you have to read 2 chapters a week or in your textbook, that you figure out a way that you don't have to read the 2 chapters a week and still pass the test.
Right.
This is how humans work. This is how humans work. Now, when it comes to shortcutting the process of becoming an entrepreneur, you really can't shortcut it, because it will manifest. Your shortcuts will manifest themselves. You will fall on your ass. All right. And when I tell you that you have the right mindset, is people don't have, like, you shortcut so much in your life. I got to explain to students, like, if you Google the information, you really, you heard it before. T said, you're cheating yourself, Billy. You're cheating yourself. It's true. If at some point in your life, you're going to have to rely on some of the information that you teach yourself on.
Yeah.
All right. And if you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to do something on your own, you cheat yourself so much that you don't even have the foundational education to stand on, to rely on, right? And so even as an entrepreneur, if you don't have the steadfastness, if you don't have the mentality, right? If you don't have the ambition, right? And if you don't have the fortitude to carry on when everybody is doubting your ability, right? Or you're so unfocused and you're everywhere that you can't really pinpoint what you really want to do, then you're not going to be a successful entrepreneur. You're not going to even be a successful an employee. You're just not going to be successful in life, right? You can run around and jump for joy, and at the end of the day, people will see you for what you really are, a freaking fraud.
Oh yeah,
because we know at the end of the day, we can look at you and tell if somebody's authentically happy or not, or authentically a happy teacher. I tell my students this all the time. There are tons of miserable teachers, and I don't like them, because you ruin kids like me, right? You ruin kids that are creative, right? Because you're so miserable. You come to school or you come to work, wherever work, you can always tell a miserable person in any stage and walk of life, right? Because they shortcutted their way to their position. They're in a position of authority that they shouldn't even be there, right? Because all these, like I said, all these degrees people are getting in leadership. Leadership shouldn't be a damn degree. People should be able to look at you and tell that you're a freaking leader. Not everybody is a leader, and you having a leadership degree doesn't make you a damn leader, okay?
Yeah.
So when you shortcut these things in your life, it will manifest itself. You don't have the fortitude to do what you say that you're going to do.
But that paper says that you can do.
I don't listen. You will hear. Mark Cuban said something Mark Cuban said, he's the Dallas Mavericks owner, right? He said he don't care what's on somebody's paper. He's a businessman. I don't care what's on your paper. I care about results. What can you do? Because that piece of paper you could have paid for. All right. All that piece of paper tells me is you did what, all that piece of paper tells me is you did what somebody told you to do. But if I have to rely on you to be a thinker, can you think yourself out of a situation without somebody telling you what to think?
Right.
Can you? And that's a big difference between being a person who follows directions and a person who can follow directions, but also can create their own directions.
Right. Oh, Jamari, here's actually a good way of how to actually achieve that. If you don't have that naturally, if you never taught that, like you didn't have a parent that told you how to be a thinker and taught you how to be a thinker, but you had a system that taught you just how to recite stuff and research stuff, but not actually think. One of the things that my dad used to do with us is he would actually get us lateral thinking puzzles, right? Like it's a book on lateral thinking. All right. And so for those that might not be familiar with what lateral thinking is, it's I have an apple, you have a cucumber. How are those related? Right. And so it's not apples to oranges because, okay, cucumber is not a fruit, but how could a cucumber be in relation to this apple? Or how could that box of chicken be in relation to a guitar? Right. And so the lateral thinking kind of lets you look at things from a different perspective to try and get that same angle. So one of those exercises you can do to get that mind, that part of you that actually doesn't think that much, to start thinking, is lateral thinking puzzles. Gets you a book on lateral thinking. Go to lateral thinking website if they have them. I'm sure they probably do. Just Google lateral thinking puzzles or lateral thinking book and get those and start doing those exercises, and they'll allow you to start taking getting new neural pathways specifically around problem solution. Right? Creative problem solution. They said, just be creative. How do you become creative if you're not creative? If you don't know what creative is. One of those ways is lateral thinking. I remember it was frustrating at first because we had these puzzles. But then that made a difference in the way in solving problems. That's actually one of the reasons why I kept a job with Prince longer than most people did when they were there.
You're already naturally a creative person, so I'm not going to even address that.
Well,
okay?
but you know what, Jamari?
No, but as a kid, when I was 5, 6 years old, my dad was giving me
Let me just say something about that. My son took a gifted exam, and those are the kinds of questions that were on that exam.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my students was telling me she did some research. She really wants to go to this college, this Ivy League college, to get her doctorate. So she did research about like how to get into their program specifically. So she found out that they mostly accept students who had undergraduate degrees in creative majors. And most people would assume that they wanted students who had undergraduate degrees in science majors. But it's actually creative. And so she plans on majoring in music because she plays piano well. Like, people are starting to recognize the value in having a creative mind, you know?
Because they understand what comes. I mean, Kyle's talked about this before a while ago. And musicians, artists have a certain way of thinking that the normal human mind or normal people that are not in those fields or taking upon those instrumentations don't think that way. So when you're a musician, you see patterns, you can recognize, and music has mathematical attributes as well to it. And so you're just like if you teach somebody how to cook, right? If you teach kids how to cook before you teach them how to do measurements, they're going to learn measurements through cooking. Right. You know what I'm saying? So those type of things, it is very popular now because the top CEOs of the world, like, you know, the Google, they're hiring creative people. They don't want the cookie cutter kid who went to school 4.0 or 5.2, whatever, and he just smart, book smart. No, I want somebody who's crazy, who thinks out the box. I want the guy who got maybe a 2.5, but he created a freaking robot in his room with his TV parts. That's the guy I want. Right. And so, but we're approaching that, you know, that 2-hour mark, you know. So I'm gonna give everybody a chance to just go ahead and wrap that up. I think 2 hours that's a good enough content. We didn't digress as much. We stayed on pretty much topic. So
good.
Again, what do you say, Sophie?
I agree. We did.
Yeah, we did. I think it was a great discussion. That's about it. That's all I got to say. I really want to wrap it up. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks, Kavan, for calling me early in the morning, arguing with me about how he should be on the paddle. He got something to
Hey,
say.
I hope you're coming back.
He called me early in the morning, man. While he's driving, he's calling me like, man, I got to be on. So I definitely love his perspective because he's one of the guys, you know, that went to FIU, and when it came to track, he was phenomenal, and he's still on a great journey. I think he definitely gave us that perspective of just the different degrees, because he has 3 degrees, he's the doctor, and so he even gave us that point where, hey, even though I got all this, it's still not required to get to where you need to get to. And I think that you know, that is very relevant, because especially in our culture, in our society, that people have to believe that they can find another way. And also, I've always wanted someone, we're always looking at entertainers and hearing their stories. We're always hearing athlete stories. And I'm glad that we have a doctor in the house that we can actually hear his story, that, and I'm going to get further in the story with another show, get deeper into his story on how he went from, you know, barely eating and coming from the islands, coming to the States, and now he's making 6 figures, you know, and it was hard work. And you know, from going to work to going to class, it was hard work. So I appreciate you being here, Kavan. Collins, always a pleasure.
This was a great panel, and just listening to you guys speak, you know, one person is right. Like I said, there's many different paths that you can take. You just have to find out what works for you, because what I may tell you today may not work for you. It worked for me, not work.
Right.
Right. So find out what works for you. Right. Like Colin says, you know, happiness above everything else. The way I look at it is, if I don't have the funds to be happy, then I may go fishing while I'm fishing, right?
Yeah.
But just about as I'm about to wrap up and get in my car or my truck to go back home, I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna have to eat this fish, but I have nothing else to put with this fish tonight. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's all about your perspective and what you want, what you value most in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I can tell you guys, there are a great number of individuals that make a lot of money that are unhappy because, like Biggie said, the more money, more problems. Yeah, what kind of problems you can have by having more money? I'll tell you what problems you have. One particular problem I ran into recently is people try to sell you stuff that you don't need, and they try to make it look like you need it. So it's almost like when you have a decent amount of money, people are always trying to get it from you. And you have to work hard to keep it. There's always a problem, right? And you may never be 100% happy, but find out what works for you and go from there.
Yeah, totally.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
I guess my final thought is this is our segment. We said like Maury, you have like the final thought, or Jerry Springer, the final thought, right? Yeah, this will be our final thought segment. You know what I'm saying? I first, I just want to say thank you to all of you, because as I'm learning from all of you and your experiences, and I believe others are, from all this positive exchange that we have around different perspectives. As we know, hey, there's 12 zodiac signs, so there's a minimum of 12 different types of people in this world, right? So, and then there's all little derivations in between. So we have a lot of colorful differences that we have, and of course there is no one way. And the more perspectives we get, is the more people that are out there that will be able to gain that part of them that, oh, well, that vibes with me, so I'm gonna try that tactic, or that part vibes with me, so I'm gonna try with that tactic. So I think that one that what we're doing is being is being received. Well, I can feel it being received out in the world in a positive way. And if there are if there are any people that are out there that are struggling with that process of trying to figure out what it is that they want to do, or how to do it, and want to gain some perspectives on like dealing with the hardships once you are stepping into it. I do provide those services. So you can send me an email, right, at myrelationshipworks@gmail.com. Again, that's myrelationshipworks@gmail.com. And so you can have a relationship to your career that is powerful and that is positive, and a relationship to what you want to do in life that is powerful. And for of course, not everybody out there has a lot of money. So I have different scholarship situations for people that are wanting assistance but don't have the funds to be able to get the proper assistance. I provide scholarships for certain individuals, or discounts and things like that. So you can email me there, and everyone else who have services and things like that, make sure you let the people know how they can access and gain access to you outside of this forum. All right, and that's me, Collins Peters, relationship guru. Last thing is myrelationshipworks@gmail.com. Email me, and then you can get a little bit of guidance.
Let me say my wrap up. Okay, so I learned so much tonight from you guys. I was like, I didn't really know what I would say on this topic, but I learned a lot, even from the viewers in the chat room. I was like, hey, that's a new perspective. I think that it's about balance. As an educator, I talk a lot to kids about what they're going to do next. And some of them really don't know. And some of them are like, this is what I want to do. And some of them are like, well, this is what my mom said I should do. So it's tricky. And I try to deal with everyone on a one-to-one, basis. But it's tricky. So I learned tonight a new concept. So there's the genie concept. I'm going to try that and, see if that'll help some of them out. And then another thing that I like that we talked about was I really love the anecdote that was given about the guy that owned the pharmacy. He wasn't a pharmacist, and someone told him he needs to go to college. I thought that was good. So, I learned a lot, and I think that everybody that leaves here should leave with balance. You know, Jamari made a really good point. It is about being happy, but it's also about being sensible and making sure that you're responsible. You know, everybody's situation is different. An 18-year-old is not going to have the responsibilities that a 35-year-old has. So they should pursue their dreams differently. But that doesn't mean throw them away, and that doesn't mean, you know, not look for your happy place. It just means find a balance, that you're not throwing away everything that really makes you who you are. And you're also, you know, doing life, you know, you're making sure that life is done right. So that's it. I learned a lot from you guys. I thought it was swell.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you. All right. I'm signing off. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button for us. We're going to have more discussions on this platform. I invite everyone back again. Same time, same place next week, Saturday. And I guess we got to link up and see what topic we're going to discuss. If you have a topic that you would like to discuss, just go ahead and leave a comment below. And we'll see if we'll want to talk about that next. So guys, I appreciate you all. You guys have a great night. All right.
Good night, guys.
Awesome. Good night. Good night.
All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, brother.